Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good evening. I, Tengku Hanis Noha binti Tuan Zaimi, will be your host for today's discussion about eschatology. Eschatology is generally known to be among the branch of theology that concern with final events in the history of the world of humankind. In the discussion, our group will cover several important aspects of eschatology. Those aspects are definition, characteristics, teachings, guidance, Quranic verse or hadith related to eschatology and its importance.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will talk about the definition of Islamic eschatology. So, what is Islamic eschatology? Islamic eschatology is the aspect of Islamic theology incorporating the afterlife and the end of the world, with special emphasis in the Quran on the inevitability of resurrection, the final judgment, and the eternal division of the righteous and the weak, which take place on the day of resurrection. Also known as the Day of Judgment, it is characterized by the annihilation of all life, which will then be followed by the resurrection and judgment by God. There are also multiple verses in the Quran that had mentioned the Last Judgment. The Day of Judgment is also called several names throughout the Quran, such as the Day of Reckoning, the Last Day, and also the Hour, which also mean Al-Sa'ah.
Next, let's move on to the origin of eschatology. As we all know, Yawmul Qiyamah, or the Day of Resurrection, is the fifth pillar of faith in Islam. But where does it originate from? Of course, the most reliable source is from Al-Quran and Hadith, where in the Al-Quran there are many verses stating the coming of the Day of Resurrection. It is important to note that apart from Islamic eschatology, there is also Christian, Jewish, and Buddhist eschatology. For Christian eschatology, it originates during early Christianity. It involves the preaching of Jesus and public life. Other than that, hadith and commentaries of the ulama have also clarified the meaning of eschatology. Some examples of ulama that have talked about this is Imam al-Ghazali, Ibn Kathir, Muhammad al-Bukhari, and Ibn Khuzaymah. When talking about eschatology, the Al-Quran plays a key role as it is a primary source of our beliefs, and Hadith comes second as supporting details. Scholarly discourse on eschatology and its sub-themes often includes an exploration of Hadith and Al-Quran.
So, learning about eschatology, we know that it concerns with the final events of humanity. So, what are the signs of the final events? What are the signs of the end times, the Qiyamah? In Islam, there are a number of minor signs and major signs. Imam Mahdi is said to be a link between the minor and major signs. In the Hadith, it is mentioned that minor signs will occur first, then Imam Mahdi will come, and then the major signs. So, some of the signs are, firstly, feeling hot in winter and cold in summer. As unusual it may seem, but according to a hadith of Rasulullah, there will be a time that it will be hot in cold and cold in summer. For example, in 2016, some of the hottest places on earth like Kuwait, they had their very first snowfall. Secondly, time will pass more quickly. People of every era, including us, had exactly 24 hours. But it is this century that we actually didn't even realize how much time has passed. Thirdly, people will compete in constructing tall buildings. See how tall the current tallest building in the world is. Or let's just see first how there is gonna be a building taller than the KLCC in Kuala Lumpur, which they are currently constructing. Next, there will be abundance of illegitimate children. So if we look at the world as it is today, this is a massive prophecy that is very true right now. Just early November this year, it was stated that there have been an increase in rape cases in Kelantan among those under 18. Thus, many illegitimate children will be born. Next, the increase of the numbers of earthquakes. What's crazy is that in the 11th century to the 18th century, there were only about 64 earthquakes in the world. But in the 20th century alone, there have been around 319 earthquakes. And lastly, we'll be talking about is regarding people's sexuality. It was predicted that people will indulge in homosexuality, and as we see now, it is starting to become really common in our world, and it is very normal to even be legally married to people with the same gender now.
Now, let's go to the guidance and teachings of Prophet Muhammad SAW in eschatology. Let's go. Now, the first one is Abu Hurairah narrated that Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "When the honesty is lost, wait for the day of judgment." They asked, "How will the honesty be lost, O Messenger of God?" Then the Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "When the authority is given to those who do not deserve it, then wait for the day of judgment." Next, Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "Before the day of judgment, there will be great liars, so beware of them." And Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "When the most weak member of a tribe becomes its ruler, and the most worthless member of a community becomes its leader, and a man who is respected through fear of the evil that he may do, and the leadership and responsible is given to the people who are unworthy of it, then expect the day of judgment." So remember, mercy, love, and forgiveness should have the primary place. Those who dedicate themselves as the cause of Islam must emphasize these characteristics, and never forgetting that Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace and blessings, was sent as a mercy for all the worlds, and the whole of existence must convey glad tidings to all over the place, and call people to the way of God with wisdom and fair exhortation. They must and should never repel others.
Surah Al-Mulk is the surah that tells us about eschatology in Al-Quran. Firstly, it is about the punishment of unbelievers in the form of hell. In verse 6, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمَ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. And for those who disbelieve in their Lord, the punishment of hell will be provided, and that is the worst place to return. In verse 8, it is mentioned the punishment for those who do not want to believe in the Lord Allah. They are unbelievers, and their lives are deceived by the temptation and enticement of Shaitan. Therefore, the explanation in this verse is connected with the end of the 5th verse about the devil who will be entered into the hellish hell, namely a blazing fire. When the disbelievers defy the lust and deception of the devil, they will not become in the life of this world, especially in the hereafter. Then, because they have chosen the wrong path while living in this world, they too will return to the fiery hell, which is the worst place to return. Hadith also has mentioned about eschatology, as in a hadith narrated by Bukhari, Muslim, and Abu Dawud. The day of resurrection will not occur until the sunrise from the west. So when the sunrise from the west, then people will believe entirely. However, the faith of someone who has never believed before and believed after the incident will no longer be useful, or indeed do good with the faith that already has. Also, from Huzaifah bin Asid al-Ghifari said, Rasulullah SAW came to us while we were talking about something. He asked, "What are you talking about?" We replied, "We are talking about the doomsday." He said, "The doomsday will not occur until you see 10 signs beforehand." The Messenger of Allah mentioned the fourth Dajjal, animals called Adabah, the rising of the sun from the west, the descent of Isa bin Maryam alayhi salam, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, 3 ellipses, an ellipse in the east, an elite in the west, an elite in the Arabian Peninsula, and the last one is the fire that appears from Yemen, leading people to their gathering place.
Hence, we have come to the conclusion, as we all know that our community in the modern world face a lot of challenges. However, what are those challenges? Some of them are poor healthcare, poverty, violation of human rights, political conflict, war among Muslim countries, ethnic conflicts, and racism. Therefore, it is important to learn eschatology and deeply reflect upon it to make us a better Muslim. Living in the midst of the end of times, a successful ummah must be able to practice the 5 pillars of Islam and Allah's commandments. Also navigate your life based on the Quran and Sunnah. Last but not least, the Muslim population should be united and tolerate among one another despite having different cultural backgrounds.